A few weeks ago, Winnipeg singer-songwriter Don Amero got a call. Would he be able to sing the national anthem at the opening game in just a few days between his home team, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Montreal Canadiens? Normally, this would have been an easy yes, and indeed, he had sung O Canada at hockey games before. But just a few days earlier, the remains of 215 Indigenous children had been found at the site of a former residential school in Kamloops, BC. How could Canada's national anthem be proudly sung as the entire country came to grips with this horrible truth, while knowing too that this was only one burial site of many, and that today Indigenous children are still being taken from their homes and living in unsafe conditions, as they are right now in Saskatchewan, the site of the COVID-19 outbreak. As he pondered the invitation to sing the anthem, Don Amero, who is of mixed Indigenous and European descent, couldn't decide what to do. By the early morning hours of the day of the big game, he still didn't have an answer. But as he sat with the grief, horror, anger, and sorrow in the middle of that difficult night, suddenly he knew. He needed to sing from the middle of the night. Not a sunny, proud, flag-waving anthem, but a dark and mournful elegy, which is exactly what he delivered, accompanied by two Indigenous elders bearing tobacco and a pair of tiny moccasins. At first, it appeared that this would not be the right time to sing Canada's national anthem. But Don Amero realized that in fact he could act, and that he must act, fully within the present moment, as hard as that might be. There was no time like the present for him to engage personally with the painful reality of Canada's past and present, and that in that moment, with the tools he had, he could contribute in his own specific way to reconciliation, healing, and justice. Moments like these may seem rare to most of us. Moments when a timely opportunity opens up, allowing us to make a contribution we never could have planned, or perhaps wouldn't have even chosen. Our ability to respond well, our response ability, if you will, has something to do with our relationship to time. It's connected, I believe, to our ability to be fully present in the moment we have, because both expectation and regret can cloud our ability to respond. It's about using the time we have to offer what is ours to give, and to do that in relationship with others, to co-create a more just and loving world. So what opportunity is this time offering us? There will be many personal answers to that question. But as a community, today, after service, we have the opportunity to talk about the proposal of a new 8th principle for the Canadian Unitarian Council. Along with the other 7 principles, we would covenant to affirm and promote individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. The adoption of this new 8th principle, which is similar to one also being considered now by the UUA, the American body of Unitarian Universalism, it's one of several recommendations being made now by the CUC's Dismantling Racism Study Group, which is co-chaired by Beverly Horton and the Reverend Julie Stoneberg. The study group carried out an illuminating survey of Canadian UU congregations last year. Among its many findings were that systemic racism and other forms of oppression have continued within Unitarian Universalism despite our stated commitment to justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Quoting from the report, "The Dismantling Racism Survey clearly shows that while some efforts to dismantle racism and other oppressions exist, a gap between our CUC aspirations and reality persists. This is evidenced in another gap between white Canadian UU's understanding and awareness of systemic racism in our faith communities and the lived realities and experiences of Canadian UUs who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. These gaps indicate that we are not living into our vision of being an inclusive, diverse, and just faith community." Continuing to read from the report, sadly, many BIPOC UUs regularly experience microaggressions and other forms of racism within UU congregations and our wider faith movement. At present, neither our 7 principles nor our 5 CUC aspirations demand that UUs actively dismantle the oppression of racism or examine how they contribute to it. The report notes, too, that the acronym BIPOC for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color arose out of the American context, and it may not fully reflect the Canadian experience of racism. As the report says, this is an evolving conversation, and I believe that word evolving is very useful. In my limited experience, every act of creativity is an act of change. And all change is necessarily an act of dismantling, of taking apart or letting go and building back up, of seeing what fits and what doesn't, what contributes to the whole, to the well-being of the entirety, and what takes away from it. Sometimes, as a writer, one realizes that a favorite passage, an image you thought was the most valuable, has to go because it doesn't serve the whole. Sometimes, too, one gets to the point in the creative process when it all seems too big, too much, a puzzle too difficult to be solved. And it is at that point that something more, the creative source or divine wisdom, can enter in to reveal a way forward. Right now, in many parts of the world, significant change is taking place as more and more people come to understand the legacies of colonialism and systemic racism and our relationships to them. Recognizing, of course, that there are important differences in how we are situated in the evolving conversation, you may have noticed changes taking place within yourself or with people around you. A few years ago, when I heard the term white supremacy culture, I felt taken aback and deeply uncomfortable. I also felt unexpectedly intense shame, not only about my ancestry, that includes slave owners in the American South, but also about my ignorance of Indigenous experience in Canada and the trauma and suffering inflicted by white settler culture, not to mention the Christian Church. As well, as a cisgender, straight, and able-bodied person, I'm beginning to understand how these characteristics contribute to my privilege. Breaking down some of the ways I see myself and my history, breaking open to admitting my own ignorance and recognizing my privilege. This personal process was and is a first step toward the dismantling of systemic racism and the reforming of institutions that continue to do such harm. It means learning to use different words and language that at first may make me uncomfortable. It means listening with openness and humility to the experiences of others. It means sitting with any discomfort that may arise in me, whether it's about my own history, my own actions or inactions, my own stumbling. recognizing what needs to be undone and reformed within myself and within the systems that I am embedded in, systems from which I have benefited. It means speaking out and standing up, calling out racist attitudes, speech, and practices, joining with others to actively change oppressive institutions, being a faithful steward, not of what was, but of the change that is necessary, open to the evolution that is necessary now. There is truly no time like the present. No time when we as a species are so aware of all the challenges we face. No time when we've been aware that time is literally running out for the planet. No time when we've beheld the interrelationship of all things and begun to glimpse the depth of our responsibility. We are gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the magnitude of our time. The proposed eighth principle calls us to dismantle racism and other oppressions, and indeed, there are so many. In addition to racism and colonialism, we can name homophobia, transphobia, ableism, ecocide, cruelty to animals, classism, patriarchy, body shaming, ageism, and forgive me, for I am sure I have left several out. They are all intersectional and interrelated. As we delve into the features of what's called white supremacy culture, at the heart of so much injustice, we must also name the oppressions of perfectionism and achievement-oriented culture in which so many of us have been immersed since birth. And finally, we are still obsessed, I believe, with time and with speed. Dismantling, reforming, recreating a new world, well, this will take time. And as Einstein said, no problem can be solved with the same level of consciousness that created it. Therefore, our anti-racism and anti-oppression work will always be a step-by-step process of change over time as we steadily gain new awareness and practice new skills. Patience and kindness will be essential parts of these processes, as together we seek right relationship with each other, with the earth, and with ourselves. This is a lifetime's work. This is spiritual work. And it is work that must take place within each of us, even as it requires collective action, beginning perhaps with the intentional framing of principles that we affirm as a faith, but hopefully extending far further into the active living of these principles. This living into our principles will take a different shape for every person, so it's important that listening and compassion be part of our practice. All creative activity is, after all, about listening and learning, about paying attention and being present in the moment so we can do the next right thing, so we can make the choice that is ours to make that best contributes to the harmony of the whole. In his book, The Prophetic Imperative, Unitarian Universalist theologian Richard S. Gilbert wrote, "I think of the divine as the power of cosmic creativity. This creativity is manifest in nature as creative evolution. It is observed in history, in those prophets of the human spirit who have tried to bend the arc of history toward justice against all odds. It is manifest here and now as we are co-creators of the beloved community. This work, I know, will not be completed within my lifetime, but I wish to work at repairing the world while I may. It is my mystic identification with this creative process that prompts me to continue." This has been called the time of the great turning. And by turning toward, we must also turn away in the continual dance of creativity that is life. Today marks the sacred time of the summer solstice, linking us with our ancestors, all our fathers and mothers in the universe of light and dark, illumination and shadow. While there is in so many ways no time like the present, this time, our time, is also linked to all other times in history. As we breathe the same air as all others, live and die under the same star, passing along our humble gifts and wisdom as best we can to those who will follow. The song you're about to hear, sung by our resident musician Gabrielle Burns, was composed by First Unitarian member Jules Krauss, and it's an inspiring example of how life evolves in creative ways that find new form and healing form. Its lyrics are adapted from a 16th century text by the early Christian mystic Teresa of Avila. It's remarkable to me, yet not at all surprising, that Teresa's personal prayer, her personal contemplation of the God of her understanding, would evolve and be offered to us today in support of our own spiritual growth that is so necessary for justice making. When we affirm that all is changing, but that love is present in every moment, we become able to respond to life in ways that heal and transform. In this present moment in time, may we embrace all that life is offering us, bringing our whole selves and our open hearts to the work of justice and love.